Seaboard Rise is the latest MIDI controller from Roli, and it's a very unique instrument. Basically, on a standard keyboard, you only have one dimension of control, which is the strike, the velocity at which you hit the notes, and occasionally aftertouch, which is the pressure you can apply after the initial strike. On the Seaboard Rise, you have 5 dimensions of touch. So you have your initial strike velocity, which is how hard you hit the note. You also have pressure, which is how hard you sink into the note. You have glide, which is like your left to right motion, which allows individual vibratos and also glides. You also have another dimension called slide, which basically controls the y-axis control on the product as well. So you can have this also set to different settings and more modulation parameters. And then you also have a parameter called lift, which is basically like release velocity from the notes. On the actual hardware, the layout of the key wave is in the same format as with the standard keyboard. So you have C, D, E, F, G, just as you would have on any other keyboard. So you can apply the same hand spacing as you would on an original keyboard, but now you don't have to use as much pressure. You can have a much lighter touch, and we'd say within about 20 minutes most keyboard players feel really at home with the surface. On the left hand side over here you have these 3 faders, and you can see at the top of these faders you have some icons. You have your left-right arrows, which indicates glide. You have your up-down arrows, which indicate slide, and then you have this small circle icon, which indicates pressure. Now, if I just put this onto a preset wave for you to hear this a little bit easier, let's try like a piano sound. So here I have a piano sound, and what you might find when you play this straight away is you don't want a piano sound to maybe have a pitch bend effect. You don't want the piano to sound like it's been detuned. So what you can actually do is you can go over to this parameter here, and by turning this fader all the way down, you actually turn off that motion of control. So now, there is no pitch bend available on those notes anymore. And you have like a standard keyboard with all of the individual notes. If you then wanted to have some pitch bend, you could turn it up. And again, you'd find that the notes quantize into the right notes. But you could add some pitch bend if you wanted. And when you do a glide, you can hear that it's now bending the note all the way down, rather than giving you that chromatic scale like that, as before. So this is how you can control the Seaboard to really fit with your type of playing and to learn and grow with the Seaboard instrument as well. Now if I show you one of the other sounds, let's put on this bass sound. So here I've got a bass sound, it's only coming from my computer so it's not so quiet. With this bass sound I've got a few of these gestures, so I can do pitch bend, I can do glides, I can do slides, and I've also got pressure. Now if I didn't want to have that slide effect coming in, again I can turn this fader all the way down, and it's not altering the sound in the same way anymore. If I just put it kind of halfway up, then basically you have to travel less distance in order to activate the modulation. So I can now activate it much quicker along the key surface. And with this one, with pressure, it's the same thing. I have a modulation when I push into the note. If I turn it all the way down, then the note is not being affected when I push into the note anymore. And if I have it halfway up, it's activated much quicker. And you can see on the software, these parameters are all indicated here. I have strike, glide, slide, press, and lift, which is the release velocity. And you can see as I do any of these gestures, you can see the indicator on here as to where I am on the path. So again, if I went to glide here, you can see that icon moving up and down with me as I perform the glide. And this is another key part to understand about the software, is the modulation capacities. With the Seaboard Rise, you have these dimensions of touch, and with Equator you have over 150 different presets which you can scroll through, which is a mixture of acoustic sounds, digital sounds, and synthesized sounds. But what you're able to do as well is to alter them very easily. So say I click on any of these parameters down here, you can see that a yellow box goes around the perimeter. And now basically anything on this screen which is also yellow, like for instance the cutoff frequency of filter 2, I can see is something that's being modulated by that dimension of touch. So as I slide up, you can see how it's modulating the cutoff frequency of filter 2. Now I can actually alter that, or I can set it to affect anything else. If I hover over the parameter, it also goes yellow. And then I'm able to add to my modulation. So maybe I'll add a bit of cutoff, some resonance. And actually I can use it in the effects as well. So I can see at the moment it's affecting drive. So let me also add a bit of crush. And maybe we'll add a bit of distortion as well. So this should be very noticeable now when I slide up, you can hear all of those effects taking place. Now if I don't like them, for instance, then I can just double click on the effects and I can get rid of them. So I can change what's being controlled. So say I'll get rid of all of those and maybe I'll add some chorus instead. So it's really, really easy to change all of these settings, and then you're able to save them all within the presets menu, just by going up here and going to save as. You're able to tag it, so at the moment I've tagged it bass, hybrid, attack, struck, sustained. I'm going to add digital to that. I can give it a name here, and then I can press save. And then that will be saved amongst all of my presets in this list here for me to be able to recall any time that I want. It's really good for both synthesized sounds and acoustic sounds, particularly things like flute. So if I take, for instance, this sound, this is like a flute sound with a kind of breathy sound to it. And so you're able to use the pressure to simulate like the breath control. So you can do staccatos, you can use the breath, and you can slightly do the pitch as if on like a woodwind instrument when you're going into a note. You can also create some really nice strings and orchestral sound as well. And we have some cool presets like this, which is a strings and horns sound. So you can hear how, as I use the slide gesture, what I'm basically doing is I'm changing between a string sound and a horn sound as I go up the keys. You can create some really interesting sounds by doing this, by messing around with some of these gestures. So all of these sounds are here, but you can create your own as well. It's a very good way of creating music. So if I just open up, say, this organ sound here, you can see that in the top half of this software you have two sample banks. Now each sample bank can be switched on or off just by simply clicking on it. And as soon as you click on it and activate it, it automatically puts itself into the chain. You can choose between many different types of samples and just click on them to load them inside the sample app. and each has its own filter again, which you can switch in or switch out into the path. There's also 3 oscillators, 1, 2, 3, and as you can see, there's a huge number of different types of wavetables that you can choose from. Absolutely loads of different types that you can choose from, and each of the waves is kind of animated, which really lets you understand how it's going to sound before it's necessarily activated into the key chain. We also have an FM synth bank. Again, you can switch this in and out of the chain by clicking on it. And you can choose the configuration of your FM synth bank as well, so you can change how it's configured and how it's going to sound within the track. You have a dedicated noise bank, so it's really great if you're creating sounds from scratch as well. You can choose between pink and white noise, and you're also able to add in your own filter as well to really filter the sound when you're building your own sound sets. You have 2 filter banks, and within those filters you can choose from a wide range of different types of filters. You can select any of those and have your own dedicated controls for each filter. And you also have an effects section, so you have a bit pressure effect, distortion effect, an EQ, which is really easy to use. You can basically drag in to affect the Q and the frequency and the gain. And then if you just go to the outside, you can just drag to control the Q. So it's really, really simple to use. You have a chorus effect, you have a delay, which again you can link left and right channel, and you can also sync with your track. The Equator software works standalone or as an audio unit or a VST. So if you're using it inside one of your projects, say I've got it as an audio unit inside Logic, I can click sync on, and then any time-based effects I'm using will be in sync with the BPM of my master track. So you also have a reverb section as well, and all of these sections are all able to be modulated. So one of the parameters sometimes people wonder a good use for is the lift parameter. And something which I quite like to use it for is for end phrasing in music. So maybe I have a little phrase and then I will control lift to the reverb time on here, so that when I play, when you let go quickly, it creates a delay and a reverb sound, which can add a nice little reverb trail to the end phrase when you're playing. And down here, as I said, you have these modulation banks. You also have 2 LFOs as well, which you can assign to anything you want, and you can also sync the LFOs to a track as well. You have 5 envelopes, which you can control either using a drawn-in curve, or you can change to a knob view, and again, all of these can be modulated if you want. With all of the actual curves for modulation, you can change those around just by dragging and moving, and you can double-click to create new points, and also just double-click to get rid of points as well. So you can really change those curves to however you want. Over here, you also have these controls. Now, I showed you before how all of these controls control the sensitivity. If you press this button here once, you can see that the icons at the top of the faders have now disappeared. These have now become MIDI CC faders, and you can see as I've turned that up, it's mimicked also on the software. And so I can control all of these faders now from the hardware. And these are also all assignable to different effects. So say I add drive to this one, you can see as I turn the fader up, it's controlling the drive parameter of the distortion effect directly. And so it's very easy to use all of these to add further dimensions of control to your work. And down here, this is an XY pad, but you're also able to control what parameters are effective across the X and Y axis. So now, Y or the x-axis. So there really is lots of stuff to get started with. It's very easy to use, all comes free with the unit, and it's available now.